Week 196 of Brada's Branded Thoughts is a good one. Iowa 2023 quarterback commit Marco Lainez joins the show. We'll talk about his decision to join Iowa football, what he brings to Iowa's quarterback room that we haven't seen as fans for probably 2 decades. And I do believe Lainez is a kid who single-handedly gives hope for the Iowa offense, the future of Iowa's offense. But first, before we get to the show and the interview for today, thank you to Ascent Nutrition, our sponsor, one of our 2 sponsors for this show, and their algae oil DHA. I'll tell you, if you're looking to feel sharper throughout the day, check out their DHA oil. You can click the link in the description below. It's created by way of a unique water extraction method. It supports healthy brain function, memory, and clarity. It's supported by both neuroscientists and doctors. Again, algae oil DHA from Ascent Nutrition. Your order supports not only this channel, but the business of former Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler. Again, it's algae oil DHA from Ascent Nutrition. Find more information by clicking the link in the description below. Pleased to be joined now by Iowa class of 2023 commit Marco Lainez. And this is a pleasure, Marco. We've been discussing getting this interview going here for a few days, and I know a lot of Iowa fans are excited about, we're still, a year away from you arriving on campus, almost to the day, unless you enroll early, which we can get to in a little bit. But Iowa fans are excited about your style of play and your ability to change the Iowa quarterback position. But first of all, before we get to that and your future at Iowa, appreciate you jumping on. Can you talk a little bit about what's occupying your time here in the middle of June 2022?
Well, first, Cody, the honor is mine. I really appreciate you doing this. And I just can't wait to get out there. But what's occupying my time, I'm just right now, school literally just ended June 9th. So we're getting into summer workouts right now. We start next week with team lifts, and then we get into conditioning at night with the team. And then that also, piles on top of running and throwing that I work with Tony. So, I'm just in full swing right now, getting all training.
Let's just dive into it right now. Before we get to Iowa, Tony Racioppi, he is it's a name that fans talk about. We know he's private instructor for Spencer Petras. He's your private instructor as well. Talk about how you got to know Tony. I know he's an East Coast guy. But how did you guys come to meet, and what impact did that have on your decision to commit to Iowa?
So he also trains Nate Stanley, so he's kind of got a link there,
right?
But so I met Tony after my freshman year. I began to train with him, and I got acquainted with him. I was still at Montgomery High School at this time, and my father and I sat down one time. We were talking about, what's going to get me to the next level. And, we obviously knew Tony, and, he has a, plethora of connections and all that stuff. But, we made the decision for myself and my family that it would be best for me to transfer to Hun. And who really got me to do that was Coach Smith, who's my head coach. And, those two are really one of the most influential people I've ever met in my life. Coach Smith has really helped me accomplish my goals. He's told me what I need to do from a, leader standpoint, mental standpoint, to get to be the leader I need to be of a team. And then, I met Tony and I started training with Tony. I'm literally in his hip pocket all the time. And so he's my quarterback coach also at Hun. So, I get the whole off season with him, and then I train with him during the season. He teaches me everything from reading fronts to reading coverages to also just gives me advice about life. He's really become almost like a father figure in my life. I call him Uncle Tony. He's really been that type of person for me. He's so knowledgeable about the game, as well as Coach Smith. Like, those two are probably the most knowledgeable people I've ever met about football in my life. And, they've carried me, from my sophomore year to once I transferred to reclass to where I am today. And I can't thank them enough.
And so talk more about your experience at Hun once you arrived, and just how did the game change for you once you started playing quarterback at Hun?
So when I experienced at Hun, I got there in the midst of COVID. So, I got there and there were 6 practices before our first game. And I didn't even know my center's name. I've never even taken a snap under center. So, it's a big learning curve. The competition we play there was much faster than I thought. And, that was the first time I realized as a quarterback, it's not so much a physical game. It's such a mental game. And,
Absolutely.
my sophomore year, I didn't have the best year. In 6 games, I threw 8 interceptions and fumbled the ball 3 times. And Tony and Coach Smith sat me down at the end of the season, and they both told me what I need to do to become the quarterback they see for me and also for myself. And so that entire offseason, I worked with Smith and Raz, basically understanding the playbook, understanding schemes, understanding where the ball should go, and how my mindset should be with the ball in my hand, and then also working fundamentals, routes with Tony, and those 2 guys literally changed me into, the prep player of the year the next year. I threw for 21 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in a 9-season game, threw for 1,735 yards, and I ran for 3 touchdowns. I mean, it was a giant leap, and I equate that to all of them. They shaped me into that person.
How well do you know Spencer Petras? I'm sure you know him very well, I'm guessing. Nate Stanley. And what's your relationship like with those 2? I mean, Spencer, of course, is projected, I think, to be the starter this year. We'll see. But, I mean, those 2 guys have taken a number of snaps as Iowa's starting QB. What's your relationship like with those 2?
I met Nate first when he was training with Coach Raz before going to the Vikings. And then I met Spencer, and I had the chance to compare the 2. They are the polar opposites of personalities you've ever met in your life. Nate is very, stoic. He's very locked into what he's doing and very quiet. And then Spencer's probably the most welcomest person, a lot of people meet. I mean, it seems like he's never had a bad day in his life. And, I joke about it. He looks like a dad, with his haircut. He needs to get a better haircut, I'm telling him. But he's really taken me under his wing. Even I'm in high school right now, he's showing me the ropes, and he's teaching me, some things that they do there. And, he really is a great guy to be around.
Are these numbers accurate? 6'3", 220? This is what ESPN's got you at right now. We want to talk about physicality. Is that an accurate assessment?
220, yes. 6'3" in cleats. Yeah, you can give me that. 6'2"
in cleats.
When I'm not in cleats.
So this leads me into my next question. You and I were chatting before we started recording here. When you committed, and remind me again when you committed? I should know that, but was that in
13th?
December?
December 13th.
December 13th. So you're an early commit for 23. You were locked in and ready to go. When you committed, I remember recording a 10-minute video based on what I'd seen in 10, 15 minutes worth of highlight tape. And I just said, I said that I know that we probably shouldn't be making comparisons, but the one guy that Marco Lainez reminds me of would maybe be Brad Banks. And a lot of Iowa fans are going to start sweating when they hear that because it makes them nervous, just because Brad was so good and so different than what Iowa saying. Iowa hasn't had a quarterback like Brad Banks since Brad Banks. I mean, there's CJ Beathard certainly had his moments, Drew Tate. But when I asked you prior to recording this, when I asked you, who do you emulate or who do you compare yourself to of anybody? Pro, it doesn't have to be Iowa, anybody. What was your answer?
So before I even knew that you compared me to Brad Banks, I was always a Hawkeyes fan. I told you before the show that, my favorite superhero growing up was Hawkeye. My dad said, hey, look, these are the Hawkeyes, it's something to follow. And I always loved Iowa, but I was, they were on the other side of the country for me. So, I never really got to know them. But then, when I started looking into the richness of the program, when I heard I could be recruited by Iowa, I've always loved mobile quarterbacks. And, I came across Brad Banks, and this was probably in the summer. And I was like, this guy's amazing. And, one of his 70-yard runs, I forget against who it was, but, I was just like, I really like the guy the way this guy plays. And, he can throw the ball a mile, but he can also run and make guys miss. And I was like, I want to be like that this season. And, Not to say it didn't translate, but it helped me a lot. I ran for 512 yards, but yeah, it was a really good person to compare to because he was just making plays. I just loved watching him, and I was like, I want to be like that.
So again, for anybody who doesn't believe me, go back to December, the video that I posted. This is the first time Marco and I have actually spoken face to face. So certainly you're your own guy. I want to make that clear. You're going to be your own guy. I'm curious, have you ever attempted to reach out to Brad, or do you hope to be able to talk? Because talk about a mentor. You've had plenty of them with Tony Rassiopi and Nate Stanley and even Spencer Petras, but Brad would be certainly a guy if you could get in contact given your play style.
Yeah, 100%. I even talked to Coach Ferentz about it the other day. I was like, they say never meet your heroes, but would there ever be a possibility I could get in touch with him? And he's like, yeah, sure, we got you. We'll just have to see how it plays out.
Tickling the ears of Iowa fans, Marco. We all appreciate that. So as far as your recruiting is concerned, can you transition a little bit to when Iowa reached out? How did that come about? I know it was kind of through Tony and the connections there. But what was the recruiting process like for you? Because you had a number of schools that I'm assuming were recruiting you hard, even schools that were closer to home. What was the recruiting process like for you?
So Iowa was my first big school offer. I had UMass and Princeton. Those were my first two going into my sophomore year. But then it went quiet, and then in the first weekend in March, I think it was March 2nd or 3rd, Iowa, I got an offer from Iowa. And I'll tell you that story. I was in the shower, and Coach Raz calls me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Coach, I'm in the shower." And he's like, "Well, you're going to get your ass out of the shower, and you're going to call Ken O'Keefe." And then I got hopped on a call with Ken O'Keefe, and then we talked, and then he offered me a scholarship. And I'll tell you that I've never seen my mom and dad so happy ever in their life. So that was that. And then the next day, Michigan State calls me, and then Jay Johnson offered me a scholarship. And then the day after that, Pitt offered me a scholarship. And then the day after that, West Virginia offered me a scholarship. And then it went quiet for about 2 weeks. And then Illinois offered me. And then Louisville offered me. Maryland offered me. And then I believe that was it before I committed.
Okay, so I just want to run through this. This is according to Rivals. I'm just going to run through the offer list. Iowa, Illinois, Maryland, UMass, Michigan State, Old Dominion, Penn, Pittsburgh, Princeton, West Virginia. You just said Louisville offered you, which is not reported here on Rivals. Am I missing anybody here?
No, that'll be about it.
So what's it like after you commit? I mean, we've had 6-7 months since you actually committed. Do schools back off? Are they still pursuing? Are there new schools getting involved? What's that like?
A bunch of them reached out to my head coach, and they were like, "If he's still interested, let us know." But my coach would always run that through me, and then I would be like, "No, I'm 100% loyal to Iowa right now. So I think it's best if they recruit someone else," and then he'll tell them that. So, but the one person I did get an offer from was Minnesota after that, and I told them, I was like on the call with them. I was on the call with their coaches, and I was like, "With all due respect, Coach, I'm grateful for this offer, but I'm still committed to Iowa, and I plan to stay that way. So, recruiting someone else is the way to go." And but I thank them genuinely for the offer, because getting an offer in this day and age is very hard. And for them to think of me, Minnesota, for them to think of me as worthy of an offer, I really appreciated it.
So why Iowa, Marco? I mean, besides the fact that you have the connections with Tony and you've kind of grown up being an Iowa fan and the Brad Banks thing, but why ultimately Iowa? And let's add this in too, Ken O'Keefe stepping away. Did that catch you off guard, and did that make you waver at all?
So if I could, describe Iowa in one word, it'd probably be family. It just felt like home when I went out there. In the building, there's just a culture that I haven't found anywhere else. It's, everybody's there for each other, and it's family oriented. And it's not so much everybody's out for themselves. Everybody, cares about the success of other people. And, when you're when you're lucky enough to be presented with a place that cares about your success, but then also the team success as an overall arching theme, and then also like caring about other player success, like how can I help you be the best version of you can. I mean, that's a match in heaven. When Ken stepped away, when Coach O'Keefe stepped away, he called me before the news went public, and that kind of attested to the people they are. You know, they they don't BS, if I could say that, but they really help. They really helped ease any suspicions I had of the recruiting landscape. It just felt like I was home and I was talking to the real person 100%, because I know some days in this day in recruiting, a lot of people say stuff, but they don't really mean it. I felt like every word that came out of Coach Ferentz, Coach Brian Ferentz's mouth, they 100% mean it. And that's honesty is the number one policy that we need or that I value in my life. And, these guys give me honesty. They're going to tell me when I stink and when I'm doing good. So, that's one thing that I really liked. And then I met Coach Budmeyer when I went out there for an unofficial, and same exact way. So I was like, I don't see a difference.
And when was the official, Marco, just for anybody that doesn't know?
The unofficial, I believe, was it is slipping. Oh, April.
Okay. First of all. And so as far as the situation now with Ken stepping away, I know he's still in an off-field role. I'm sure he's still going to be, I would assume, going to be a part of your life once you get to Iowa City. But let's talk about Brian Ferentz. You're not naive to the fact that there's been criticism towards Brian. There's been criticism towards the offense, towards Iowa's quarterback play. But again, I know you can't speak on that because you're not here. But what's your relationship like with Brian, and where do you feel like Brian can help your game to evolve?
Well, he has a lot of experience in the NFL, and then also, he's been at Iowa for an extended period of time. His father's the head coach there, and I've just been getting real close with him, ever since I committed, and I'm starting to really like his philosophy. And, he has a lot of. He also played in the NFL, so that's my ultimate goal, and he has a lot of knowledge about it, and he also has a lot of knowledge about offensive-minded people. So he didn't play quarterback, but he has a lot of knowledge about the way a read should go, the way a play should go, a line scheme should go, reading coverages, and I believe he can firmly help helping me develop into the quarterback I want to be just by being around him as much as I can, because he seems like the person that, despite all the criticisms from other people, they don't know what he's all about. And what he's all about is winning at the end of the day and making me the best player and developing the quarterbacks to be the best they can be. And that's all you can ask for. And so, my time getting to know him, I really see myself running through a wall for him.
And so I'm curious, this is the day and age now, as you know, where college athletes, specifically quarterbacks especially, tend to have an off-season private instructor, teacher, whatever you want to call, coach. What has, from what you know, especially with Spencer having balanced that, he's been balancing that for several years now. What do you know as far as what it's going to look like once you're at Iowa, given the fact that Brian is the QB's coach? What's the communication line like with someone like Brian and Tony, Kirk and Tony? What's that like, and how do you balance that as an athlete?
That's a good question. I can't really speak on what their communication is because I'm not there, but
Sure.
I do know that when Spencer has his off time, he flies back. Instead of going home, he flies here to train with Tony. And, I know when being around Spence, he tells Tony what they do and how they do it, how Brian wants it, so that Tony can be like, okay, now how can I help with that? How can I help with that model? So Tony's not trying to interfere with anything, and he's basically taking what Spencer tells him and just perfecting it. Like, Brian wants it like this, this, and this, and I struggle with this as Spencer, and then Tony's like, okay, here's how I can help. So, I mean, I don't really know the communication, but I know it is making Spencer the best he can be.
How well do you know Kenny Pickett?
I know Kenny Pickett really well. He's trained with. I really got to know him 2 years ago when I started training with him, going into his senior year at Pitt, and he's a guy I ask for advice a lot. Because he's from New Jersey, he grew up, he went through the recruiting process. So I asked him for a bunch of information. He's also just a great competitor to be around. In March with Tony's draft prep guys, I was allowed to come to the workout, but I wasn't allowed to work. So I just sat there and just watched Kenny, and I was just like, this guy's unbelievable. And despite all the physical stuff, Tony always tells me that his intangibles is what separated him from other people. And, I was like, okay, how can I learn from this intangible? What intangibles do I need to have? And, just learning from him any chance I get, just watching. I just people watch. I don't, because like sometimes when you badger them, they don't really like that. So you got to figure it out yourself. Figure it out what worked for him and apply it to yourself. So I just like to watch him, watch how he acts, watch how he operates, and be like, okay, that's how I got to operate.
How much did he try to recruit you to Pitt?
So when I was doing a bunch of visits in the summer of going into my junior year, I had a meeting with him and Coach Whipple, and he's like, this is the spot to be. He was telling me a bunch of stuff about it, and I really liked what he said about it. And obviously it's Kenny, so I was gonna hold him in the highest regard. He did recruit me a lot, but he also told me when I was walking out of there, hey, whatever is best for you, do it.
You may have heard of the real-life Hawkeye man cave known as Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Well, after lots of hard work, there's not much space left to paint, but the walls are exploding out for public consumption. Under the Kitchen is proud to announce that you can now purchase exclusive prints of some of your favorite Hawkeye legends, including wrestling great Spencer Lee, football players Tyler Goodson, Riley Moss, and Drew Tate, plus an all-in-one Murray family legacy print featuring Keegan, Chris, and Kenyon Murray himself. Signed and unsigned prints are available, making the perfect collectible or gift for any Hawkeye enthusiast. For more information on purchasing one of these outstanding Hawkeye prints, visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook. That's Under the Kitchen on Facebook. We're talking with Marco Lainez, Iowa class of 2023 commit from New Jersey. Marco, where are your seats at for the Iowa-Rutgers game this year?
I'm hoping front row. I'd love to get to that game.
You will be there, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
How far is Piscataway?
Piscataway is 20 minutes from me, or 30 minutes.
Wow.
But I play on Saturdays, so hopefully, damn well that game is at night, and I have a morning game, so hopefully I can get to it. But if it's in the middle of the day and I have a game, I unfortunately can't make it. But I'll record it. Definitely.
You've got some leverage with some connections with your coaches and whatnot, so maybe you can make something happen there. And that's going to be a difficult road trip. I've talked about that, and I know we're discussing your future, but that's Rutgers. Did you ever, at any point, were you ever a Rutgers fan? Because you are in that area of the country.
100%. Growing up, when they upset Louisville, that was when I was like, wow, I really like Rutgers, and I loved Rutgers growing up because they were the hometown team, they were a Big Ten team. I had Ohio State coming in, Michigan coming in. I was like, damn, like this is cool. And then also like the atmosphere there is awesome. It's unbelievable. It's not a big stadium, but it's in the ground and everybody feels like they're on top of you. And when it's a blackout, it looks amazing. Whiteout, whatever they do there. But I've always loved Rutgers growing up.
Let's talk about goals, Marco. I know you mentioned the NFL. Certainly, you've accomplished a lot already in gathering a number of high major offers. You've committed somewhere. Of course, I know you have a goal of signing, I'm assuming, in December. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
But let's talk about just goals, both short-term and long-term. What's in your eyesight right now?
Well, in my eyesight right now, I would really like to go undefeated again this year with my team, and also just being better than I was last year. I did really well last year, but I just want to see how good I can become. That's the quest I do every day. How good can I become this year? Every day, how can I make myself better today? Is what I'm trying to say. So I definitely want to see how well I can be this year, and then also, as the leader of my team now, how can I, get the other guys on my team to motivate them to be the best they can be, so that we can win. The end goal is winning, and that's all that matters. And no matter how we get there, if I hand the ball off 90 times a game, or if I throw the ball 100 times a game, I'm okay with it as long as we win. So that's my number one goal, to just go 11-0 this year, because when you win, everything else takes care of itself. And then when you get to Iowa, I just want to see how good I can become. How good can I become with those guys there? How can they develop me into the best quarterback I can be? And then also, how can I give back to the community there? How can I be a role model on and off the field for other people there? And then how can I, most importantly, give back to my parents, who sacrificed so much for me?
Great answers. I'm not going to ask you to speculate on another player's future, but we don't know if Spencer Petras is going to take advantage of his extra year of eligibility, whether he starts this year or not. He could come back in 2023, so you may play a year with Spencer. How well do you know the other quarterbacks, Alex Padilla, Carson May? How well do you know those guys at this point?
I've never met Carson May, but I know I saw Deuce warm up, and then he transferred out. Padilla, he's a really cool guy. I really like him. We both just share Hispanic heritage, so that's one common thing we have there. And then Joey Labus, he's a cool guy, very chill. But those are the only three I know right now. I haven't met Carson May, but I assume he's a great guy. So can't wait to be their teammates.
Can you talk a little bit about, since you bring it up, your heritage, because you're obviously the third Marco, right? You're the third Marco Lainez. Can you talk about your family's heritage?
Yeah. So my dad's side is Puerto Rican and Salvadorian, and then my mom's side is Caucasian.
Papusas.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
you grew up eating a lot of papusas?
Papusas, arroz con frijoles, yeah, you name it, we had a lechon. But Marco Sr. is my grandfather, and Marco Jr. is my father, and then Marco III is me. So, I've grown up with my dad and my grandfather in my life, my grandmother, and, on the East Coast, we're near my father's family a lot. My mom's side lives on the West Coast. My grandfather on my mom's side is an Iowa fan. He was always an Iowa fan growing up. So he's in the Midwest. He lives in Wyoming. So, we ride horses. We do all the stuff they do in Iowa out in Wyoming. But, so I've had the best of both worlds. So, it's awesome.
That's a pretty stark contrast when you talk about El Salvador and, I would think, Wyoming. What part of Wyoming, if you don't mind me asking?
Sheridan.
Where is it?
So Sheridan. It's
Sheridan. Okay.
It's in a small town called Bighorn.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really nice. Really nice out there.
Wyoming is beautiful. Between Yellowstone and just the wide open. People think Iowa's wide open. Man, you drive through central Wyoming. Man, it's some beautiful terrain. All right, Marco, I appreciate you taking the time here this afternoon in recording this interview, but I do want to ask you one final thing as it relates to your future at Iowa. The quarterback position, we know there has been criticism. Iowa, there's no question. Iowa's been the first to admit it, whether it be Spencer Petras or Brian Ferentz, that the offense needs to get better. What do you bring to Iowa? Not taking anything away from Spencer or Alex or Joey, whoever starts this year, but what do you bring to Iowa that is unique? We made the Brad Banks comparison earlier, but what do you think you can bring to Iowa that's unique, that can make this offense substantially better?
I think the best way to answer that is I like to make plays, whether that be with my feet or my arm. I never really like to give up on a play. Now, I know there's a difference between making a smart decision and also a dumbass decision like scrambling and throwing it across the field. Like that's not what you're supposed to do. But if I can get 15 yards with my legs, I definitely think that's the ability I can do. Now, intangible wise, I want to win, and whether that be handing the ball off or throwing the ball, we just got to find a way to win. And Not only for me, but for the community, for the people of Iowa. You got to find a way to win for them. So that's what I bring.
And again, to emphasize this further, I know you're all about fundamentals and intangibles, and that's all great. But I think you'd be the first to admit you can't always teach 6'2", 6'3", 220, and you have some of the physical assets that, I don't know, Brad Banks had. So
I'd have to give that, like, that's all my mother and my grandmother making me rice, beans, and chicken almost every Thursday. Tacos and all that stuff. That's where the side is from.
And pupusas. Marco Lainez from Princeton. But by the way, before I don't mean to keep throwing you more questions, but you were offered by Princeton. You were offered by Penn. Academics must be something of very serious concern to you. Can you just bring it up?
I'm not allowed to play football if I don't have good grades. So it was kind of just like, you give me the grades, I'll give you what you can do for football, is what my dad said.
Marco Lainez from Princeton, New Jersey, Hun School in New Jersey, and future Iowa quarterback, 2023 commit. Marco will hopefully talk. Hopefully we can get you back on in December, sometime around your signing day. Do you have any thoughts to enrolling early? Is that something that you've considered, or have you made a decision on that?
Yeah, we're in the process of talking about it with the school. Okay. I can get back to you on that, but yeah, I'm excited.
Marco Lainez, appreciate the time, sir, and we look forward to seeing you in the black and gold.
The honor is mine. Thank you.
Now, just for the record, Marco listed at a couple inches taller than Brad was at Iowa. Marco's still another year in high school. He could grow another inch. But just some of the similarities on the field, I just thought it was ironic that Marco had compared himself or kind of emulated his game after Brad Banks. And that was something that stood out on tape when I initially watched film of Marco back in December when he committed. So very excited to have Marco on board. And I do think, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I really do think that Marco could change how we perceive the quarterback position at Iowa. Now, certainly 2023 is over a year away. The season's over a year away. We know traditionally it's taken a while for quarterbacks to learn the system at Iowa, so you hope those things can speed up as well. But really appreciate Marco joining the show, and what a mature young man. And I'll say this, one of the more personable guys that I've spoken with on the recruiting trail as far as commitments and interviews, signees. I don't remember a guy who was more personable, kind, and humble than Marco Lainez. And that's what they need. They need a guy with a good personality, who's got the physical traits, who's a leader. They got a good one in Marco Lainez for the class of 2023. So appreciate Marco joining the show this week. I want to let everybody know, if you're listening to this over the weekend, we will have Tony Rasiopi, private coach for both Spencer Petras and Marco Lainez, as well as the private instructor for Kenny Pickett and Nate Stanley and Art Sitkowski. We'll have him on live on the YouTube channel this coming Monday. Live this coming Monday at 8 o'clock Central Time. That's June 20th. Monday, June 20th, live right here on YouTube. Bring your questions, your chats, your comments. Myself and Tony Rasiopi during a special edition, a live edition of Hawkeye Hangout this coming Monday, the 20th at 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. The show will also be podcasted on Spotify, Anchor, wherever you listen to From the Hawkeye of the Storm later. But again, join us live on Monday for myself and QB's guru, Tony Rasiopi. Appreciate everybody tuning in for another edition of Brada's Branded Thoughts. Thank you again to Marco Lainez. We'll talk to you next time.